Good morning, everybody. What a beautiful day it is today. Welcome to Unity Center of Davis. My name is Reverend Rich Carlini, and at Unity Center of Davis, we like to welcome you through the name and through the nature of that living Christ presence in each and every one of us, and in the warm and loving spirit known as unity. Will you join me in prayer, please, this morning? Yes, let's take a deep breath in this morning and settle into a time of coming together, to a time of community, to a time of love, to a time of worship, to a time of celebration, to a time of questions, to a time of answers, to a time of joy, to a time of sadness, to a time of fear, and to a time of faith. Yes, it's a questionable time in this universe, God. Not so much in this universe, but on this planet. And we know that all is right at the same time as we are expressing. We know that we are one with you, universe, one with God, one with the force, one with the flow, and that each of us share that divinity, that each of us in this human experience share a divinity. And so we work together to co-create a world that's for each and every created substance on this planet, for each and every substance that's formed. We stop a minute and we just take this whole planet, this entire planet, and wrap it in our prayers, wrap it in our thoughts, and bring forth right thinking, bring forth love, bring forth strength. We bring forth faith, and we bring forth guidance that together we can co-create love for each other, co-create peace on this planet, co-create a place where all have food, where all are equal, no matter what color their skin is, what gender they are, what race they are, what their sexual orientation is, what their gender is, what their religion is. One planet, one world, one heart, one divinity. Thank you, God. Amen. David Trolley, we are free.
I am free, I am unlimited. There are no chains that bind me. I am free, I am unlimited. Right now, right now. I am free, I am unlimited. There are no chains that bind me. I am free, I am unlimited right now. And you are free, you are unlimited. There are no chains that bind you. You are free, you are unlimited right now. You are free, you are unlimited. There are no chains that bind you. You are free, you are unlimited right now. We are free, we are unlimited. There are no chains that bind us. We are free, we are unlimited right now. We are free, we are unlimited. There are no chains that bind us. We are free, we are unlimited right now. We are free, We are unlimited right now.
Thank you, David Trolley. He's singing it out this morning. It's the truth. We are free. We're unlimited. There are no chains that bind us. If you feel like you have any chains that are binding you, you've put them there yourself, because we're born free and unlimited. No chains that bind us. We decide if we're going to put them there or not. And today I see us all deciding that there are no chains that bind us. And in the midst of knowing that, let's say our mission statement, which is our vision, is a world transformed by divine love. Together, a world transformed by divine love. And our mission statement for getting there: together, we radiate that divine love through prayer, spiritual enrichment, joyful connection, and sacred service. And now I want to take a moment to unmute everyone and invite you today to bring the names of anybody you'd like into our prayer circle.
Jerry Anderson,
Ada, Amanda, Aaron, Loy, Amanda,
Monty,
And so we gather these names that have been brought forward. We gather more than names. We gather these persons and we bring them into our consciousness. We bring them into our mind. We bring them into our hearts. And we see them open to the healing power of God, to the guiding power of the universe, to the strength of the planet, to the strength of the force. We see all prayer asked for, received. And we see all prayer asked for, received, not just as expected, but as the universe provides it. We are open and we are receptive to answered prayers from the universe. And so it is. Amen.
Thank you. And now let us prepare for meditation.
You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are my family. You are the face of God. You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are a part of me. You are the face of God.
Deep breath in now, deep breath in, and hold it for just a moment. Hold it, and exhale, exhale, and settle into this time and place. This is your time. This is time to settle in with spirit, settle in and know. Begin to focus on the breath, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. I am the face of God. I am the face of God. Breathing in and out, you know the truth that you are the face of God, that I am the face of God, that we are the face of God, expressing. I express God in this human experience. God and I are one. And in my divinity, I co-create. I pray. I meditate. I affirm. I deny. And I express as the face of God. Breathing in and breathing out. Saying it so slowly and softly to ourselves. I am the face of God. I am the face of God. I am the face of God. Breathing in and out. I am the face of God. Slowly moving into the silence, knowing that I am the face of God in the silence. I am the face of God. We are the face of God. Coming back to this time and place, giving thanks for our time of sanctuary, giving thanks for this brief stop in the silence of our heart, in the silence of our mind, in the silence of our being. We know that we are the face of God, and we bring that with us with gratitude back to this time and space, wiggling our fingers and wiggling our toes, moving our shoulders up and down, and maybe reaching above our head and stretching, and slowly open our eyes. We come back to this time and place saying, thank you, God. Thank you, God. And so it is. Amen. And music from David Trolley.
It's been a very long time since I've sung this song, and its creation got its start from our own Unity Center of Davis Earth Care Committee. expressing the spirit, embracing the human, honoring the divine in all, caring for the earth. The skies above enfold me in wondrous stars of light. Below my feet, dear Mother Earth gives all I need for life. I am spirit, I am human, I am one with all there is, living in the mind of God without an end. Expressing the spirit, embracing the human, honoring the divine in all, and caring for the earth. Such gratitude I feel within to be a part of life, in unity with all there is and perfect in God's sight. I am spirit, I am human, I am one with all there is, living in the mind of God without an end. Expressing the spirit, embracing the human, honoring the divine in all, and caring for the earth. Expressing the spirit, embracing the human, honoring the divine in all, caring for the earth, honoring the divine in all, caring for the earth.
Thank you, David. That was absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I really enjoyed it. Thank you. David, we were meeting and talking about music, and he said, well, there's this, one of the songs that Lise mentioned that she liked, and there were two of them. We did one last weekend, and then he said this one, and he started singing. I said, oh, next week, because we're talking about spirit expressing. And so thank you, David. I really enjoyed it. And so here we are at the end of a 6-week series with a little Hasselback thrown in on what we call the 5 unity principles. And so as we prepare to have that talk this morning, I want to advise that you fasten your seatbelts. It may be a bumpy ride. Maybe just a bumpy ride this morning. So tighten them up a little bit. And I know it's only 10, but a cocktail may be in order to. No, just kidding. Before I start really talking, I want to say thank you to Ellen Davenport, Reverend Ellen Davenport, for her work on her book, The Five Principles. We've used a lot of that book in our work. We're going to look at it even more today. And thank you, Ellen, and Connie Fillmore Bassey for looking at years and years of her great-grandparents' work, and bringing it, either her great-grandparents or her grandparents, and bringing it together in a collection called The Five Principles. You know, I thought we'd do a quick review, even though we did a quick review in the meditation and in the prayer this morning, but just to get into this fifth principle, because the fifth principle is the culmination of the other four principles, as we've said. We've talked about one presence, one power. And so as we go through that daily checklist, we say to ourselves about the first principle, do I affirm divine intelligence and love in this situation? In this situation, in any situation, as I'm expressing in this human experience, am I affirming divine intelligence and love? And then we talked about that spark of divinity within each of us, that connection that we have, that connection that I have with Miss Puma, and that I have with just anything in this human experience, and that I can experience that divinity, the divinity of creation. And so my checklist for myself as I move through the day is, do I remember my own divinity and that of others involved? Do I remember I am one with any others involved? And then we had the kvetch, who's not with us today, the wonderful Sue Barton, who kvetched her way through our Reader's Theater in the Law of Mind Action, when we talked about bringing thoughts held in mind and creating this reality, creating this human experience as the face of God. You are the face of God. We are the face of God. We're creating this human experience and we're moving forward in it. And so we ask ourselves on our checklist, do I take responsibility for attracting into my experience and know that its outcome for me will match my thoughts and feelings about it? Do I take the responsibility? Do you take the responsibility for saying that the thoughts that you hold on to, that you grab and you focus on, you create an outcome in this human experience? And will you take responsibility for it? And then co-create, and in the midst of that co-creation with spirit, we're using prayer and meditations and affirmations and denials to push away power to any thought that we don't want having power on us, and to affirm power to those thoughts that we do want involved in our life. And so we're asking ourselves on our checklist, have I aligned myself with God, the universe, the good, and received guidance before I act? Hear it, before I act, not after I act and reflecting. It's okay, we're human. We do it sometimes after we act, we think about it. But our practice is to think about it before I act. It's to run through that checklist. Do I affirm divine intelligence? Do I remember my own divinity? Do I take responsibility for attracting this outcome into my life? And do I align myself with God, with good, with the universe before I act? And so if we can remember all of that, it's not much to remember, is it? No, with everything else we have to do, we have to remember all that. Really, we do have to remember that. And then we can move into the fifth principle. Ellen Davenport says about the fifth principle, knowing and understanding the laws of life, also called truth, are not enough. A person must also live the truth that he or she knows. And that's how we put principles into action. We live our truth. By doing our checklist, we know our truth and we live it. So spiritual action, you ready for this? Does not demand marching in the streets against war, saving the environment, or turning corporations into socially responsible do-gooders, although some people will express the truth in that way. Ellen Davenport says that spiritual action means, at its base, integrating our divine essence into ordinary daily living with its drudgery, confusion, and difficult people. It means at base integrating our divine essence into ordinary, annoying daily living with its drudgery, confusion, and difficult people. And it's how do we apply these principles when we're sick, when we're heartbroken, when we're scared, when we're angry, when we're feeling apathetic? How do we make choices day in and day out in alignment with principle so that we can, bit by bit, create the kingdom of heaven on earth? For it's the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom of heaven right now. Heaven's not later. Hell's not later. Heaven and hell are right now. And how we express ourselves and how we apply the truth determines whether we're having heaven on earth or whether we choose to live in hell on earth. So I took the opportunity, and I guess it's fortunate because it helped me with my talk today, to take the phone and go to my Flipboard app and read the headlines. Well, that could be either good or bad, I said, and I'm going to read some. I'm going to read a number of the headlines from the Flipboard app yesterday. It's quite a world we're living in. There's so many things going on. It's mind-boggling. But here's a couple headlines. This is from Saturday, the 13th. I try to stay away from, I'm sorry. I'm reading my line. I said I tried to stay away from the news, but I didn't yesterday. It's okay. Sorry, let me go to the next slide. Here we go with the headlines. New York City Karen loses her mind and coughs on woman after getting called out for not wearing a mask. So now we've got a Karen in the meme going, and now we have New York City Karen. We have several other Karens, but this particular New York City Karen, if you're unmuted, please mute yourself. Okay, there we go. And so she got called out for not wearing a mask. Next headline: Florida has its biggest COVID-19 surge yet. Next headline: Man says white couple called police for stenciling Black Lives Matters on his own property. A man says a white couple called the police for him stenciling Black Lives Matter on his own property. Here's Karen again. Tennessee Karen blocked Black women from residential pool, is on disciplinary leave. Karen's busy. She's gone from New York to Tennessee. Atlanta erupts after Rayshard Brooks' death prompts police chief to step down. Congresswoman Bonamici wants clearer coronavirus testing guidelines in Oregon after Latino couple denied. This one's good. Listen, President Donald Trump announced that he won't watch NFL U.S. national soccer team if there's kneeling during the anthem. Boston. I'm going to go on for a while because we have to look at how we're expressing ourselves in this universe today and why our planet is where it's at and how can we express ourselves different. Next headline: we have a long way to go. Thousands gather in Boston for transgender rights. Yes, I guess we have to have rights now to express a gender that we can't get out of our mind, that we know is right for us, that this is how we're going to express in our world. And so we someone decides that they want to be that they need to be a different gender than they were brought into this world as, but we've taken their rights away, and now there's protests in Boston for them to have rights on their own choice, on their own expression in this world, because they are the face of God. Next protest. You see, I'm on to protest now. Next headline. Anti-racism protesters on Saturday sought to call attention to the deaths of 2 more Black men. One who was found hanging from a tree in California, and another who was tally shot by police outside an Atlanta restaurant. Oh, I'm sorry, was fatally shot by police outside an Atlanta restaurant. Now we're off to Virginia. Protesters marched to statue of Confederate General Robert E. Lee. This at least caught my attention a little differently in the headlines. Nickelodeon announced SpongeBob as LGBT in honor of Pride Month. Thank you, SpongeBob, for coming out. We knew you'd been in a closet, but we're taking your rights away, SpongeBob, so maybe you want to think twice. Orthodox Jews sue de Blasio Cuomo for discrimination over lockdown rules. Oh, it's a crazy world out there, but I want to stop for a minute and talk about racism today. I want to talk about a trending story on CNN about Kennedy Mitchum. Kennedy Mitchum was not expecting much when she emailed Merriam-Webster last month, Merriam-Webster, the dictionary. But she wanted to let them know that she wanted the publisher to know that she thought its definition of the word racism was inadequate. Now, Mitchum had gotten into a lot of conversations about racism where people had pointed to the dictionary to prove that they're not racist. It happened, and it's happened a lot more lately as the world reacts to the death of George Floyd while in the custody of the Minneapolis police. So Kennedy Mitchum, who's 22 years old and recently graduated from Drake University, and she lives in Florissant, Missouri, just a few miles from Ferguson, Missouri, where protests over the 2014 police shooting of Michael Brown helped solidify the Black Lives movement. So she's in the midst of all this. People are saying, well, I'm not a racist, even though they're expressing as a racist. And they use the dictionary as an excuse. And she writes to Merriam-Webster, that's been around for a long time, and says she doesn't think it's adequate. So what was Merriam-Webster's first definition of racism? Let me read it. It's a belief that race is the primary determinant of human traits and capacities, and that racial differences produce an inherent superiority of a particular race. Now, that's the first definition, that racial differences produce an inherent superiority of a particular race. And Kimberly Mitchum said that many people she's talked to dismiss her concerns about racism because they don't look at it that way. And that's what the definition says it is, when really it's so much more than that. Mitchum said she sent her email on Thursday night and she got a reply from from editor Alex Chambers in the morning. She said that Peter Sokolowski, an editor-at-large, would be looking into it, and that he says that their entry also defines racism, not as the primary definition, but as a secondary definition down the line, as a doctrine or political program based on the assumption of racism and designed to execute its principles. A political or social system founded on racism. Now, that definition would cover systemic racism and oppression, much more than the first one does. But it's not the primary definition. And so Merriam-Webster is willing to take a look at our definition of racism because we're taking a look at racism. We're taking a look at race. We're taking a look, excuse me, I'm passionate about this. We're taking a look at how we express ourselves as God in the midst of someone having a different color of skin. And I want to stay there because there's so many other things that I could bring into this discussion this morning. All those things about LGBT, about gender, about the oppression of women, but I'm not going to. I want to stay on black and white because that's where it's at in this country. And we have to stop and look at it. Wikipedia says that race is a grouping of humans based on a shared physical or social qualities, and they're divided into categories generally viewed as distinct by society. Now get this, the term was first used to refer to speakers of a common language and then to denote national affiliations. But by the 17th century, the term began to refer to physical traits. So looking at it from that perspective, discrimination based on skin color, and I'm not familiar with these terms, but it says it's also known as colorism or shadeism, is a form of prejudice or discrimination from members of the same race in which people are treated differently based on the social implications from cultural meanings attached to their color. So as a race, we've taken color of skin and we've attached social meanings to it and social implications. And not only that, we've taken and attached privilege to it. And I know we have. I know that I was taught racial discrimination. I know without a doubt, I can remember back to growing up, I was taught white privilege. The power of normal. Being white is normal. Anything else is not. Anything else is not. That's white privilege. We have privileges that other people don't get. Now, what are these privileges? Well, some of the most common ones, well, just think of these. The first aid kit has flesh-colored Band-Aids that only match the skin tone of white people. Oh, yeah, doesn't even look like I have a Band-Aid on unless I have black skin and I put a flesh-tone Band-Aid on it. Everybody, yeah, there's no darker colored Band-Aids out there. Maybe there are and I haven't seen them. Or how about the products white people need for their hair being in the aisle labeled hair care rather than a smaller separate section of ethnic hair products? Yeah, if you're white, you go to the hair care section, but if you're not, you go to the ethnic hair products section. Or the grocery store stocking a variety of food options that reflect the cultural traditions of most white people. And then you can go to the Asian food section, or you can go to the, well, whatever other. And then there's just a couple of other things about white privilege that whites can appreciate. White people are less likely to be followed, interrogated, or searched by law enforcement because they look suspicious. We know that. We are less likely. We even think it. We were taught to think it. White people's skin tone will not be a reason people hesitate to trust their credit or financial responsibility. Yep, that's usually our privilege, because if we're of a different color, the trust isn't really there, especially not for credit or financial responsibility. I mean, we had to pass laws that say you can't discriminate on somebody because of a bunch of things, and that includes color. Oh yes, white privilege. If white people are accused of a crime, they are less likely to be presumed guilty, less likely to be sentenced to death, and more likely to be portrayed in a fair, nuanced manner by media outlets. We know that. We hear it all the time. It's true. But it's privilege. It's our privilege. I've been enjoying it. How about you? Well, unless you're not white, then you haven't been. The personal faults or missteps of white people will likely not be used to later deny opportunities or compassion to people who share their racial identity. That's just probably not true for white people, but for people who share their racial identity, they're not held as responsible. As life goes on, they're forgiven easier. They're allowed to have a second chance. They're allowed to express themselves differently than they did. They're allowed to learn the principles and move forward with their life. The Smithsonian Magazine says to finally consider the life of Matilda McCreer, the last known survivor of the transatlantic slave trade. Kidnapped from West Africa and brought to the US on the Clotilda, she arrived in Mobile, Alabama in July 1860, more than 50 years after Congress had outlawed the import of enslaved labor. McCreer, who died in 1940 at the age of 81 or 82, displayed a determined, even defiant streak in her later life, wrote Bright Katz earlier this year. She refused to use her former owner's last name, wore her hair in traditional Yoruba style, and had a decade-long relationship with a white German man. Good for her. Good for her. But 60 years after it was against the law, she was brought over as a slave. How American society remembers and teaches the horrors of slavery is crucial. But as recent studies have shown, many textbooks offer a sanitized view of this history. I was taught a sanitized view of this history and am shocked still to this day to find out what I was taught is different than what I thought all these years. Instead, our history focuses on positive stories about Black leaders like Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass. And prior to 2018, listen to this, prior to 2018, Texas schools even taught that states' rights and sectionalism, not slavery, were the main causes of the Civil War. And in Confederate memorials across the country, writes historian Kevin Levin, enslaved individuals are often falsely portrayed as loyal slaves. Loyal slaves. Back to the days of Aristotle, Aristotle says this about discrimination, about slavery, about privilege. Greeks are free by nature. Now, if you remember, Aristotle was in the Hellenic period, so of course Greeks are free by nature, aren't they? So are whites. Greeks are free by nature. Barbarians or non-Greeks are slaves by nature. In that, it is in their nature to be more willing to submit to a despotic government. Now, Aristotle didn't specify any particular races. He argued that people from nations outside Greece are more prone to the burden of slavery. But he does say that the most natural slaves are those with strong bodies and slave souls, unfit for rule, unintelligent, slave souls. You see, non-Greeks had, they were fit for slavery because they were bigger and they had slave souls. But it's interesting because he defines the kind of bodies and souls, and they don't always go together, implying that the greatest detriment for inferiority and natural slaves versus natural masters is the soul and not the body. So history tells us this, as I go on, that racism rests on two basic assumptions. One, that a correlation exists between physical characteristics. And two, moral qualities that mankind is divisible into, whether they are superior or inferior stock. And so, if that's true, racism is a modern conception. And before the 15th century, there was no basic assumption that a correlation existed between physical characteristics and that moral qualities come from different colors, and we can divide these colors into inferior and superior stocks. So it just came about around the 16th century. We began bringing shipload of slaves over to America then. A correlation in racism, a correlation in white privilege, a correlation in discrimination, and we've learned it and we brought it forward today. So I ask you this week, this year, this life, this human experience, let's all stop and look how we're expressing ourselves in this human experience. Let's do our checklist. Let's do it every day. Let's do it every minute. Let's express ourselves as we want to be expressed in this human experience. Thank you. Have a good day. Thank you. Now, if you have enjoyed, thank you, Julie Curry, for that extra little hand clap. I love it. Oh, and there's one from Kevin, too. Thank you. What I want to say is now is the time for us to gather our tithes and love offerings. And if you enjoyed today's service, I hope you'll take a look at that when you prepare your tithe and love offering, whether you're doing it today, whether you've already done it, whether you do it online, whether you put it in an envelope with some of the lovely notes that we received. Thank you. And our offering blessing that we say together is divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. I am grateful. And so it is. Amen. And now let's sing our peace song. David Trolley, please.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, a peace that was meant to be, with God as creator. Family all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow, to take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
And together, our prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. I am that light. The love of God enfolds us. I am that love. The power of God protects us. I am that power. The presence of God watches over us. I am that presence. Wherever we are, God is. and all is well. Have a great week. Thank you very much. And you are all unmuted now.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Reverend
Thank you.
Thank you for creating that space.
Thank you. Thank you, Reverend Rich, so much.
You're
For another
welcome.
fantastic Sunday.
Good. Thank you. I got a little carried away this morning. I told you to fasten your seatbelts.
And that's okay.
Okay.
Thank you for allowing me the space.
Fire it.
Hi, Kate.
Yep. Thank you very much, Reverend Rich, for opening that conversation. Yes.
Welcome, man. Thank you.
It mirrors very much the conversations that our community and family are having now at resources of examining our thinking and our openness and our previous ideas and conceptions. So it's very timely. Much appreciated.
Yay.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Hey, Rev, I'd like to recommend a YouTube video to everyone if they haven't seen it. It's called White Privilege. It's
Yes.
based on a book, and her name is Dr. Robin DiAngelo. And it speaks very well to what your sermon was all about.
Can you put that in the chat for us, please?
If I can figure that out, yeah.
Have y'all read White
I
Fragility
haven't
yet?
said it before.
There's a little thing down.
Okay, I see it. I see it.
Yeah, and push.
Andrea, I'm reading.
Okay,
Have you read White Fragility yet?
I haven't read the book. I just saw the video.
Oh yes.
But have you read it?
A phenomenal book. Phenomenal. And it's actually one that I recommend to all white folks.
Definitely, and even folks of color, because I think folks of color really don't understand it that well either. They just know that there's a victim of it. But anyway, okay, so I hit the chat, and then what?
And then just type into it. Go over to the right and type into the chat space.
This is everyone below it, I think.
Change it to everyone.
Yeah.
Esteban, it's at the bottom where you type. Yeah, that's the one.
I don't see nothing's at my bottom.
I've already put the book in the chat for everyone of White Fragility.
But we want the
Oh, thank you, Jesse.
also the video that Esteban was referring to.
Okay, I wrote down what he said, which was called White Privilege by Robin DiAngelo. Is that?
So you go to YouTube, and that'll pop it up for sure.
I can see if I can copy the link. And put it
It's
in.
White Fragility, and it's on a back order on Amazon. So if you put your if you order it on Amazon, then they'll ended up giving you an estimated delivery date as it becomes available. But it's so popular that you can't get it right now on Amazon. But we have our order in.
Her most recent book is Deconstructing White Privilege. Robin DiAngelo. It just came out maybe 3 weeks ago. That's her most recent.
Sharon, thank you.
Deconstructing White Privilege. That's Robin DiAngelo's most recent.
Thank you.
So we're talking about two different things?
Same author, two different.
We're still talking about Robin DiAngelo, Dr. Robin DiAngelo. She has two books.
Two
the
books.
The most recent one is Deconstructing White Privilege.
And a video by the same author.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
The video is about 45 minutes or so. It's
long. It's very good.
Yeah.
Oh, I think you just did it.
Maybe we'll have a video evening or something, and we'll do a watch party. And
That would be great. I would really enjoy that. Yes.
okay.
That sounds
Let's see
wonderful.
let's see if we can set that up.
Yes. And with discussion.
White fragility.
Yeah. And I think that might be the link, Esteban, but I'm not 100% sure.
What's that?
Andrea, what was the name of your book?
White Fragility.
Oh, same one.
Yeah, it's the same one. Yeah. There's like a whole
list of books I have somewhere.
The
I
other-
can
the other one- the
send
other
those
one
out
is
next time too.
I just put a long hyperlink to a newsletter that is chronicling and reviewing books on this topic and how they differ. And the ones that are the most interesting to me are the ones that are not only challenging our thoughts, but are also equating how racism has been wired into our somatic and neurological systems.
Yes.
And so that's the link that I put down there. I said another excellent resource, and it takes you to a web page that does reviews of various books and talks about, he calls it my grandmother's blessing, and it's a Black man talking about, a PhD talking about the somatic links to racism. It's fascinating.
Sharon, isn't this incredible?
Yes, it's really, it's a sensitive subject that we have to talk about.
Mhm.
You know,
I agree.
because we haven't talked about it.
Yeah.
We've
So
shoved it.
it's
We've
time.
shoved. We've shoved it
universe.
back. Yeah.
Right. And that's
The
privilege in
universe
itself,
is
right?
telling us it's time.
I think too.
Yes, Andrea.
Makes me
Yeah.
cry.
Andrea says that's privilege itself, right
Yeah.
there, to shove it to the back. Absolutely. Yeah.
So I began to realize that I'd done that. And I realized that I was still naive and ignorant. And so I went to ask a wise woman who I know, who has very dark skin, to talk to me. And just, I'm thinking, you know, we think, we read, we talk, but we also need to listen. And she shared 3 indignities. She, in a very gracious and calm voice, she shared 3 indignities that she had, I'm going to use the word suffered, I don't know what she said. That very week, things that I didn't realize were done. Especially, I mean, I always think California's state where we treat people equally. And it was shocking to me, and it made me realize how much I don't know about what it's like.
That's powerful.
Well, and we're thinking right now specific, you know, mostly about Black lives, but a lot of people do or do not know. I found out a couple years ago that Native Americans were also enslaved in this country.
Oh, yes.
And and they, in fact, they were not liberated till years after African Americans were liberated in some cases. And also, I just, my daughter, I was married to a man from Mexico, and my daughter is, so obviously my daughter is half Mexican, and I'm very sensitive to the way that we treat people from countries in Mexico and Latin America in this country. You know, and I've gone to Mexico many times, I've gone to Spain. There's a very rich culture, and we just simplify it because all we see are people working out in the fields or however we see them. And it's denigrating because it's an incredibly rich, as anybody who's traveled to South America knows, rich culture. So it's all basically anybody who doesn't look like us or talk like us.
Hi, everyone. This is. I just wanted to. Center for Spiritual Awareness in Sacramento has a 21-day challenge. It's a habit-changing program that they have around our attitudes and habits equity. So I posted a description and link in the chat. So happy Sunday, everybody. Thanks for
Thank you, Sandra.
Does anyone know if there's a way to preserve the chat conversation so we can look at it later?
You can, I just
You
copied
go
it.
to the,
You can copy it.
well,
I don't know how to do it.
can I tell you how to actually do it? So if you go to the bottom, if you're on a PC, in the chat, just above where you would type in a message, there are 3 dots to the right. If you're in the chat and you go to the bottom where you would type a message, there are 3 dots just above that line of typing the message at the very right.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
There's
Got
more email to it. And then if you click on it, it gives you the option to save the chat.
Where does it save it to, Sandra?
Your G drive, and it gives you a green bar that says chat saved and show in folder.
Okay,
And you can open where it was saved to.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then you could also share it if you prefer to save it in different files. You can use on Macs anyway. To the left of those 3 dots is a button that just says File. It allows you 5 different ways to save it, either via Dropbox, Google Drive, or your computer. So there are multiple ways to save.
Yeah.
You know,
and what
when
is
I-
it? Is it saving the conversation, or is it saving? I was trying to save the page on the chat with the references.
Yes, that's what it does.
Save the chat.
That's what it saves, Ann. Yes.
Thank you, Ann.
And it,
The thing I did was copied it
Mhm.
and dropped it in a file.
Right.
I just did that. That was the easiest.
You know, when I
Thanks for telling
first
us
came,
about that.
when I first came to this ministry, they told me that the congregation wasn't very tech savvy. I'm not finding that to be true. Pretty darn tech savvy. Congratulations.
We had more time.
Don't rely on each other.
Yeah, I would like to thank Bob McVoy for tuning in. It's really been helpful. He's recording this and it will eventually show on YouTube, as I understand. Is that correct, including the chat?
Thank you, Bob.
I don't know how it will capture the chat. It shows I clicked on the button when people were talking about it to show, but I don't know if the recording captures that or not. I just don't know.
I don't think it does.
Thank you.
So I will, when I edit it, I will leave at the end of the recording what we're doing right now. I won't end the service at that point. So this would be there, but I don't know if it's going to reveal, but you can listen to it and follow what's audibly spoken, but I don't know if it's going to record this chat, even though I see it in front of me. I don't know if that's going to be part of the recording.
Now, Bob, you've got YouTube up and running, don't the service? Several of the services are on.
Yes, this is through starting with May the 3rd, are all on YouTube now. On Richard's website, Transform Myself, there are some previous ones. I was just going over this with David Fleming last night. He's also preparing the audio portion on the website. We had some obstacles that were in. We didn't know what we were doing. Richard, you just said I didn't know everybody was so tech savvy. Well, I don't think any of us were this tech savvy in the middle of March. We've learned a whole lot in that period of time.
Patricia Wright is becoming a website designer.
No, just a website inputter.
Oh. May I say that I'm going to step away. I have to go get dressed. Sonia and Hal, Reverend Sonia and Hal, are lending me a bicycle. So I'm going up to get it. So you all go on, okay? The meeting is still there, okay?
Give them our love.
Bye-bye.
I will. Thank you.
Did you deputize a host?
Well, actually, I always deputize the Duffys as a host. Well, you are the Duffys. What are you saying? Yes, no. All right. Take care. Enjoy yourself.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's
I
been
wanted
grand.
to request if some of this
Nice
could
talk.
be recapped in the newsletter. Some of,
Good idea.
yeah, that would just kind of summarize some of the things that reference where we can go to access this information.
Yes.
And who were you asking, Ann, who were you asking to do that?
Pardon?
Who were you asking to do that summary?
Somebody who works on the newsletter who would.
Well, there isn't really a somebody. There's a bunch of somebodies, and it's basically a number of people who input. So if someone would like to summarize it and submit it for the newsletter, that's absolutely possible. But someone has to take that action.
Okay, I appreciate that. And if I had been able to capture the information, I would volunteer to do it, but I was unable.
Can't.
And you're talking primarily about the links, just being able to pull together those links for people.
The links, yeah, the ones that were on the chat box, I pulled that up. I tried to save it. And,
Maybe somebody who did save it could email it to Ann.
We're not posting
there
the
are tons
audio.
of other references. If I don't get that, there's still lots of stuff, and I already have the book White Fragility, and so if it can't happen, there are a million other places to find it. But thank you.
I'd like to say something about the audio. They have not been put online yet because we don't have access to the web page to do it. I don't know what's happened there. So someday we'll have the audios caught up.
Okay, I'm going.
Interesting. Okay.
I wonder if, as a congregation, we could somehow arrange for a conversation where we could be part of the conversation, but be listening to people of color share with us the things that we haven't experienced, don't know how to wrap our heads around.
So we can watch movies or like different documentaries too.
Yeah.
I think that unless like you're friends with someone, like you said, like that wise woman that you're close with, I think that was like a beautiful opportunity for you. But I don't know how. I don't know like what it would be to like have someone come, and because it can be like re-traumatizing, right? So if that's not like a space that they want to do that or feel comfortable like preaching to like a bunch mostly like white folk, you know, so like I think I think that would be really cool if we continued this conversation. But yeah, maybe we watch like a documentary or like a movie, and then we like.
Well, I've done that and I've read and everything, but hearing from an individual the power of racism that I understood it intellectually, but I didn't get it emotionally. And I'm talking about a community conversation, not really someone coming to speak to us, but maybe we'll have that in Davis at some point where we can.
Well, we can explore that. I mean, Reverend Rich did suggest the video, but he's not on this call right now, so there's no reason that we can't suggest that. And there may be potentially someone in the Unity movement that could speak eloquently to that.
Anyone who's felt like they're a minority.
Right. So we can, I'm certainly able to ask him that question. I mean, we all can, but I'm certainly willing to do that for you for the group, is to ask if that's possible. And you're thinking that we would have kind of like a class. I mean, that we'd have it on a separate time via Zoom. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah. Well, we've had
Let's float that idea.
Community conversations about how do we want downtown to look.
Right.
Why can't we have a community conversation about who are we and how do we feel in our community?
Hey guys, this is Jessie here from Petaluma. So I love the conversation. It's very rich and wonderful. And I have already saved and emailed this chat and sent it to info@ucod.org. So if you look on the info, whoever monitors the info email,
it will get sent to me and to Reverend Rich.
Okay, great.
Very good.
So it's already sent.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And then the only other thing about this that I'm really playing with outside of getting information, changing viewpoints, opening minds and previously conceived ideas about how things are, is that I, having lived in a lot of different places all over the world, also really felt with our friend who talked about indigenous people and you know, Latin American folks, and for me I think of Muslim and other people, and I have been educated in these last couple of weeks that the conversation right now is about Black Lives Matter. And so every time I've brought up widening of the scope, that we're all a part of God and that everybody matters, I'm getting some flack and some feedback. I just wanted to say, I just wanted to share that. It's in a good way and it's all healthy, but the point is that right now, at this moment in time, the conversation is about Black Lives Matter. Yes, equity for all and equanimity for all, but the dilution, that no one appreciated the dilution of the message that Black Lives Matter by talking about other people who also need to be seen as equals. I'm just sharing that that's a personal experience and something to be sensitive to.
Definitely.
Thank you, Jessie.
It's huge, yeah.
Thanks,
You.
Jessie.
Well, blessings to Davis. I'm gonna head into the garden.
Thank
Love
you.
to you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Good Sunday,
I'm also
everybody.
gonna head out. Love y'all. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.